I'd like to introduce our Chief Executive Officer, Josh Brum, who's going to lead our fireside chat today.
Thanks, Molly, and thanks everyone for joining the call today. I just want to say that this is a special day for me, a special day for all of the dynamos on the call here from Dyne, and look forward to hearing your perspective and helping us understand even more innately how we can help drive and benefit your daily lives. So again, we're really pleased to bring everyone together from the Dyne team today as we commemorate our World FSHD Day 2020. This is our inaugural FSHD patient and family spotlight for Dyne. We all here are at Dyne for one reason, and that is to create transformative therapies for people living with devastating muscle diseases. These stories and you all are what inspire us to create a sense of urgency that drives our work every single day. I just want to take a quick second to introduce formally all of you who've joined this call to share with us your perspectives. So I know we have Angelo and Laszlo Farkas. You guys want to say hi, wave to all the team? Thanks so much for joining. I know you guys have two daughters, Alyssa, age 13, and Vanessa, age 11, living with infantile onset FSHD. So thanks so much for joining and sharing some perspective. Russell Carantenuto, you're diagnosed with FSHD in your late teens, and you're entering medical school this fall. Where are you going?
Robert Wood Johnson Medical School.
Congratulations, that's fantastic.
Thank you.
We also have Howard Shabner, who's been using a wheelchair to manage his FSHD since his early 30s and is on the board of the FSHD Society. Hi, Howard.
Hi, thank you.
So Angela, Laszlo, Russell, and Howard bring different perspectives on the experience of living with FSHD. We're truly honored to have them join us today and talk about the disease as they see it and answer questions from our team.
So there was no known history in our family. It wasn't until Alyssa was born, she was not smiling, and then at some point we started seeing the doctors, and she had gone misdiagnosed pretty much up until about 5 years old.
Yeah.
They thought she had Mobius syndrome. They said facial paralysis. She had undergone a surgery for facial paralysis. And then it wasn't until shortly thereafter that she was ultimately diagnosed, which then led us to testing myself and my daughter, my youngest daughter at the time. And both of us tested positive. I have no symptoms. Our youngest, she also started progressing, but not in the same patterns that Alyssa did.
You know, in that whole process of like being misdiagnosed, and I think also sometimes maybe a little mistreated, like, for example, you know, at one point, because one of my presentation symptoms was that I had trouble breathing when running. I wasn't sure, maybe I had asthma, you know, we didn't know. So the pulmonologist, after like a pulmonary function test, told me that, you know, running hurts, you know, that's just kind of like grow up kind of thing. He thought I was being like, you know, maybe dramatic or something. And I think like, you know, being treated that way and kind of going through that process that way, it kind of made me think like, you know, I think that's what inspired me to want to become a doctor in the first place. So that's what I intend on dedicating my career to, would be the treatment and research of people with FSHD.
In terms of my diagnosis, I started basically having some weakness my senior year in high school. And it took a little less than a year. I saw a bunch of doctors in Chicago. I was diagnosed basically at the beginning of college, so just was as I turned 18. So that's been, well, I'm 62, so that's about, you know, 44, 45 years. So my parents don't have it. My dad didn't, my mother doesn't. So about 20 to 25% of the cases are a spontaneous mutation, which I am. And so I think obviously if somebody has it in the family, they start to show symptoms, it's much easier to get diagnosed. But if you're out of the blue, it's harder.
As far as living with it, I mean, I don't know if there's ever a normal, you know, that you go through. I mean, it's a daily task, you know, to keep yourself focused and motivated, but there is a sense of normalcy that does come out of it. I mean, you don't know any better after a few years, right? You know, we made a very hard decision as a born, you know, typical New Yorker, big sports fan. I never thought I would ever be able to leave the city. Here, you know, we moved down to Charlottesville, Virginia, and, you know, you talk about one big community that just tries to make everyone feel special and normal. And, Our oldest daughter immediately was recruited to the cheerleading team because they choose a special needs, member every year, and she excelled at it. It was on the, TV twice. They did stories on her. So, it's amazing what you start to, what you just start to naturally gravitate and look for based on the challenges that you face, and you made a really good decision.
My progression has been fairly severe. I've been using a wheelchair since I was 32. I have had a lot of losses. I was a lawyer. I stopped working about in 2002. I just got too fatigued pretty much, every day, and I found that my progression was increasing.
I would say that the pain I have is pretty chronic. Like every day, I'm at least in some sort of low level pain throughout the entire day. Like even now, it's almost like I compare it to like having your body in just like water that's like just too hot to be comfortable, almost like throughout your muscles, specifically in the more affected areas. But I would say similar to Howard, if I do anything that's strenuous, specifically to muscles that are either weaker or muscles that are compensating for those that are weaker, you'll feel like a lot of pulling or like sharp pains.
This disease has so many mysteries. The variability from one patient to another, the asymmetry, the variability among families. It was not a steady progression in the sense it wasn't, each year wasn't the same as 1 year, but it was times when it was more rapid and then times when there was a bit of a plateau.
So I'm only 21, so I definitely have a long way to go in terms of progression, and I know that. So I think I can't speak to it the same way Howard did, but I definitely have had, kind of like he described, it never really gets better. I find that if I'm more lackadaisical in my my exercise and my like workout routine, I can definitely lose more muscle and like feel weaker. I'll find that like my right arm is like now getting weaker, but it is difficult to tell, right? Because you're always with yourself every day, so it's hard to bias yourself from one day to another. But if you reflect over larger periods of time, it's a little easier to see what happens in terms of progression.
It's really interesting to hear your stories because we had the exact opposite. Alyssa was by far the worst from the beginning. Yeah. She was on a soccer team at the age of 5. Between 4 years later, I mean, it went from at least being able to be on the soccer field to not being able to walk. Versus Vanessa, who's 3.5 years younger than her, is still walking, and she just turned 11. It seems like it just kind of has its own time frame where it decides to accelerate. And you could go through a year or 6 months even where you could say, wow, I'm noticing, how she's walking, the gait, this, that, and then it plateaus for sure.
I think, certainly personally, and I think most people would say that if there was a therapy that could at least stop the progression, that would be wonderful. The next thing would be regeneration of lost muscle, and I don't think anybody really has a sense of whether that's possible at all.
We really appreciate your time. I hope you'll be open to continuing to interact with us and truly become part of the Dyne family. We'd love to make that happen. And it's been a true pleasure to get to know you and hear your stories today.
You guys are awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you
Thank you guys so much.